Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, 1 minute at a time. In this, our 5th season, we are looking at Joe Johnston's 2011 film, Captain America, The First Avenger. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast, doing it solo again. Today we're talking about minute 83, which begins with Gabe Jones and Jim Morita listening in on the Hydra frequency, and ends with Cap creeping across the top of the Schnellzug EB912. Back on the show, it's Will Freeland from the Hype Is My Superpower podcast. Hello, Will.
Hello.
We are back in the Alpine tops up on the mountain here, looking down as they see what it is they've been looking for, the train down below. But before we get to the train, it's actually, we've got this little moment, some back with Cap and Bucky banter. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the way that Cap and Bucky are portrayed in the film? Do you like this Bucky as opposed to the little child Bucky? And do you like the kind of the way that Sebastian Stan and Chris Evans kind of create this relationship between them?
I do like it. I like that Steve has like a best friend that is his age.
Right.
And again, we talked about it in past episodes, but it's just like you don't have decades of history that you can go and just like establish. And so like where you have an entire war and see the different missions that Steve and Bucky have gone on. And so to have them be childhood friends and they grew up together and Bucky was always the big brother. And then you get Steve basically role reversing. I really like it. They've got great brotherly chemistry. It's a lot of fun.
Do you like the relationship as it kind of continues in the MCU?
Yeah. They have, they've gotten to the point where they don't need to talk. They have that kind of like brother camaraderie together. The insight you get into Bucky and the Shield in Captain America or Falcon and the Winter Soldier is amazing. But yeah, throughout the 30 films at this point and like 75 TV shows, when you get to see Steve and Bucky on screen together and the way that they only need to give each other looks and they can banter, but they know exactly what they're going to go do. I mean, that's the dream for like a partner, especially in war.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think that there's this sense of the two of them. I mean, we've seen them bantering since we first saw them together when Bucky saved Steve in that alley. But there's also like, so we get that sense of the history with the two of them. But also what I love about it is, I don't know, I feel like in military, like when they're out in the field in situations like this, there's this sense of using that banter as a way to kind of diffuse the tension and the nervousness that you may have in these situations where, yeah, we're on top of a mountain and we're about to zip line down on this wire that, we may, if we don't jump in time, we're either going to, hit the rock wall at the end of the wire, or the train's going to hit us. Like something bad could happen if we mess this up. And then if we succeed, we're still jumping onto the enemy's train where we're going to be fighting the enemy. And like, it's an incredibly like insane, plan that they have here. And so, yeah, when you have this moment where Bucky and Steve are kind of having this little moment to kind of break that tension, like I buy it. I feel like it works on all those different levels.
Absolutely.
And it also, I mean, it's kind of that funny moment because they're talking about riding a roller coaster and Steve is like, yeah, and I threw up. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's very funny. It feels fitting for him as the puny Steve. Although it does make me wonder, it's like, well, if puny Steve would throw up on a roller coaster, wouldn't Super Steve still potentially throw up? Or is that part of his
super constitution?
Is that what it is?
Super equilibrium.
Or would it be super throw up? Like, see, that's the question. Really intense. Really, really intense. You don't want to see it. Oh, man, that's just a terrible image that I've created now. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for that.
All right. Well, yeah, you're welcome. Meanwhile, let's get off of that as quick as we can. We're back to Jones and Marita, and they are tapping into this line, as we've seen, listening in on Hydra's frequencies. And this is where we find out, as Jones tells them, that Dr. Zola is on the train. They've had permission to open up the throttle because wherever they're going, they must need him bad, is kind of the message of this thing that Jones tells them. One, that speaks poorly to the fact that it is winter on these tracks, as we talked about it in our last minute. It's like, open up the throttle. You know what? This is a Hydra train. It's magnetized to the track. I don't know. It's one of those things.
Why do they feel safe?
Yeah, right. They're apparently not too worried. And also, what's interesting is in the script, it's not clarified that Zola is on the train. They just, in this communication they get, it's just like, whatever is on the train, they must need it bad. So they don't actually know that they're not, I don't know. The way that it's set up here is like, they're going here specifically because they want to capture Zola. Like, that's the way it's portrayed to me. Or as I watch the film, oh, okay, they want to capture Zola. And so they're on the train, they're ready to jump onto it in case he is. And he is, so we're going to do it. Like, that's, I don't know, that's how I read it.
Yeah.
But in the script, it plays as, we're going to jump on this train because whatever it is, Hydra wants it bad. And it ends up being Zola, which is kind of an interesting little shift in the way that plays. Do you like it that way, or do you feel like it works better knowing that they're after Zola at this point in time?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess it's already like a 2+ hour movie, but if you wanted more screen time, I feel like going in, it's like a first episode of The Mandalorian, where it's like, I'm going to go get this package. What is this package? And then it's like, oh, it's a person. It's not a tool or weapon or whatever. And so like, but that requires at least 2 conversations of screen time. And so, yeah, taking away the mystery, I think, is fine, because, an hour and a half into your movie, I think you want to just, you want to keep on ramping up to your climax and not continually leaving questions and having a mystery to solve and then another side quest and another side quest.
Yeah, right. You're right. It's interesting that it's so specifically Zola that they're after. And I guess it makes sense. Like, when you think about, yes, we can keep destroying Hydra's factories, but, for every one factory we destroy, 2 more spring up, using the Hydra motto. So I guess their thinking is like, let's attack their designer, the person who's coming up with all this stuff. Let's get him so that he's not there to kind of continue doing these designs and coming up with more of this stuff. The other way that it would have played were in the script. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't like the idea that it was you that they're wanting. Okay, well, what do we do with you? Like, it feels like an odd mystery to have decided to set up. So this makes so much more sense to me.
Making it specifically Zola, I guess, raises the question of, why don't we just kill him? I mean, I guess it speaks to the, like, evil of SHIELD and the SSR, because they want Zola to make weapons for them instead of for Schmidt. Because we see, like, right in the next scene, in the next cut, the train just got off of the bridge. You could have just blown out the bridge and be done with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, there's, like, if what they were transporting wasn't something that the SSR wanted to talk to or to study, yeah, they could have just destroyed it right here and taken out the path for future Hydra trains to kind of transport this gear across this mountain.
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting that they very specifically are trying to capture. And I guess, I mean, we'll have the scene later with Colonel Phillips and Zola. And as we'll kind of, explore in later films, like, yeah, there is this darker side to what SHIELD's intentions are. And perhaps, this darker side to the way that that whole absolute power corrupts absolutely thing. Like, hey, and we're not seeing the behind the scenes, but yeah, maybe they've started capturing all these shield weapons. These Hydra weapons. They're realizing this insane power of the Tesseract that is fueling them, but they don't know where it's coming from. They just keep finding weapon after weapon, and like, what is Hydra using to create these things? And Howard's probably studying them, and they're probably like, we want this for ourselves. And we'll certainly, like, even in the next movie, we'll talk about phase 2 and using this technology in some capacity themselves. But it's how the group starts thinking what they can do with this stuff. And I think that reflects to the darker side of these organizations. And even if at this point, SSR, which will be SHIELD, does not have that underbelly of Hydra agents kind of inside of it, it's coming. And you can see the mentality of coming up with ideas like this of, hey, let's not blow this train up, but let's get the guy who's on it we'll bring him over to our side. You can see how there are people within the organization who are already starting to think down these lines, and how easy it might be for them to kind of be convinced to join Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting when you start thinking about it in that capacity. All right. So now we've got this moment. One, I just got to call out the fact that when Steve puts his helmet on, I think it's really interesting that they design his Captain America helmet to look like a legitimate helmet. Like, he puts it on like, it looks like a helmet. It's kind of cool the way that it kind of comes on. I think that's a fun little beat.
It's the little like flip on the back of the helmet.
Yeah, it looks like a helmet, right? So that he can move his head. Yeah, I think that's cool.
It's very nice of them.
All right. So then we have Falsworth telling them you got to get going. And then we've got this whole line about Steve. We've got a 10-second window. I don't know who figured that out. And I don't know, did they...
And when?
Yeah, did they already do a test run on the wire to figure out how fast they go? I mean, they don't know how fast the train... Like, there's so many things about the physics of all of this that I really struggle with. And it's a movie, it's a Marvel movie on top of that. And it's one of those things that if you're just not in the moment when you're watching it and you're asking yourself these questions, then it's not working for you, clearly. But in a movie by minute format, we start thinking about these things. And it's one of those things where I'm like, how do they know how fast that train is going? They opened the throttle, but what does that mean to them? Do they have to leave instead of, like, maybe it used to be 15 seconds, but they're like, well, it's opened the throttle up, so you got 10 seconds now to get on. Like, I end up having way too many questions as I watch this.
Yeah, and this is one of those scenes where it's insane that they're not wearing gloves other than Cap.
Right. I don't understand that none of them have gloves on. It really boggles my mind that they're grabbing these metal handles on these.
Yeah, it's very simple tech for these zip lines that they're using.
Yeah, right. I know, it's crazy. And they're getting ready to jump off, hurl through the cold, wintry air down to this train. Man.
Like, kids' playgrounds have rubber for their grips on their like zip lines things.
Right.
And this is just metal bars.
Yeah. I mean, these hands, they're not going to be able to use their hands by the time they land because they're going to end up having frostbite on them. I mean, it's, I don't know.
What does Dum Dum say?
Oh, Steve says, we got 10 seconds. If we miss, we're bugs on a windshield.
On a windshield.
And so Dum Dum says, better get moving, bugs.
Every time I watch it, when he says, better get moving, bugs, I immediately think of Bugs Bunny and not like insects. And it always throws me off every single time I watch this scene.
Well, okay. And I think part of the reason for that is because before he says that to them, he does like, it would make more sense if he says that immediately after Steve says, you missed that window, or bugs on a windshield. And then he says, better get moving, bugs. But we get an interruption from Falsworth in there saying, mind the gap, which it ends up, one, anachronistically, like Mind the Gap wasn't introduced in the London Underground until 1968. So completely, it makes no sense except to modern audiences that he would say that. So it's very strange that he uses that. But two, it ends up being this weird interruption in the middle of this. I don't know. I feel like it's Dum Dum's joke gets kind of completely crushed and leads you to thinking of Bugs Bunny because of this weird interruption there. It's a strange.
Yeah. Well, which then like retroactively makes the Gap like a Looney Tunes Wile E. Coyote drop.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what that's what I think he's thinking of, because there seems to be like the train is going along a mountain edge, the side of a mountain, and so they're clearly, I guess, on a cliff on another mountain that's right next to this mountain.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It seems like there's a canyon.
Mind the Gap is like, don't let go too early.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I don't know. Like, even if they were going to use that as a joke, I feel like it would have worked better if Captain America said, we've got 10 seconds. You got to time it right or we're going to be bugs on a windshield. Have Dum Dum Dugan say, better get moving, bugs. And then they start jumping and then, shouting out to them. You have Falsworth say, mind the gap.
As they're going.
Or something. Then it would have worked a little better, even if it is anachronistic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And why do only three? So we've got Captain America, Bucky, and Gabe as the three troops who hop down onto the train. Why is it just those three? And weirdly, in my head, it's always been the entire group. I don't know if I've ever really paid that much attention that just the three of them do it, but like, why do the other four stay behind?
Yeah.
I mean, if their intentions are to help at some point, like once they do manage to get inside and get Zola, which is, as we've kind of gathered, their intention, they're going to be miles away.
I chalk it up to because there has to be distance between each jumper, apparently, because they're very specifically timed. Then jumpers 4 through 7 aren't going to be able to make it to the train.
I guess.
Maybe.
I mean, for a no prize, sure. It's like there's got to be some reason for it. It's not a huge train. From what I could tell when it was on the bridge, it looks to be about 7 cars, which is including the engine.
Yeah.
So it's not incredibly long. And as we see when they start landing and moving across it, like I think even in the visual effects as they were putting it together, they were losing track about which car are they on, because some of it seems a little like, I think they're a car off, but we'll talk about that in tomorrow's minute as we kind of continue seeing them on the trains. I don't know. I guess I just struggle with the fact that this is a team, but only 3 of you are going to go do this thing. And now the rest of us are like, we're just going to go back, hike down the mountain. Like, are they hike? I mean, I don't know. Where are they? They're going to have to like do a day's hike to get back to.
Right. How did they get? We don't see them get the. I feel like they got airdropped onto that like little ledge that they have.
Maybe. Yeah, well, now I want like the one-shot story of the rest of the Howling Commandos after these 3 hop onto the train. They're like, well, all right, let's hop on our sleds or hop on our skis or whatever, and we'll shoot on down to the lodge and sit by the fire and have some hot cocoa.
Yeah. These 3 pulled the short straw.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a funny little moment. I mean, I guess we'll see, how effectively they use these 3 in tomorrow's minute. We'll talk more about that, but I did want to bring up the train is called the Schnellzug EB 912, which it's the express train is what it means. So I guess it's just the Hydra Express train. That's what they have just jumped onto. It doesn't say that there is anything special about this as far. I guess on the wiki I take it back. It does say it was powered by the Tesseract, and so it can reach far greater speeds than any other locomotive of that era. Which also speaks to the fact that they shouldn't be going at those speeds on icy tracks over a canyon in the middle of winter.
Checks out. I will take a quick second to just talk about like the battle damage, I guess, on Cap's shield.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I can only defend it when I sit here thinking about it minute by minute, but like I always felt like it's a vibranium shield. It should never have battle damage. When you look at it, I guess it's the parts that have been painted have like gotten parts of the paint has been shot off, but it's all still silver under the paint. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's largely what it looks like, except, I mean, when you look close at the shield, it looks like it's not like red, white, blue. It actually is like red, unpainted vibranium, red, unpainted vibranium blue. And so the unpainted vibranium also looks like it has that battle damage on it. And so I do wonder about that as well. Like, should it have those smudges on it? I get it if it is the paint, but if it is the vibranium, why does it have those markings?
And so the couple of marks that are on the vibranium part are only there as like black outlines from like the soot or the impact of whatever he got shot by. So like it's arguable that it still works, but I don't know, it's a little odd. Like, I get they want to just show that time has passed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Although, interestingly, when we first finally see the full-on shield, this is exactly how it looks. Like, it comes pre-battle damage when we first see it. It's not even the fresh new one, which is pretty funny. I mean, we talked a little bit last week about the vibranium and how vibranium, if you think about what actually would happen with vibranium, the fact that it repels kind of everything means you wouldn't even be able to paint it. Like, it would just like instantly come off. Like, there's nothing about it that is logical. And so I don't know, it's one of those things you kind of got to just roll with it, go, all right, well, I guess we'll buy into these marks on it.
Yeah, it's either got to be painted or you go into this world of blue vibranium and red vibranium.
Hey, that's an interesting world. I'd love to see Steve and Howard working that out. Okay, but what if you do red here? He's like, I only have so much blue. Okay, so the blue, that can be just in the middle, and we've got a lot more red, so let's put it's a whole other conversation.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, does that cover the minute?
I think so, yeah. So we've got them creeping across the top of the train. We'll talk about that a little more next time. But otherwise, let's wrap it up. So remind everyone again what you are up to out there on the interwebs.
Yeah, on the interwebs. I'm on Twitch as Silver Dreamer, Silver with a Y. Stream Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Primarily talk about Marvel stuff, and I build kits like Legos and Gunpla. It's fun.
That's awesome.
Come and hang out.
Awesome. Check that out. The link will be in the show notes, everybody, and we'll be back tomorrow. So, Will, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Spread the News by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.